会計業務ですとか、税金の納税申告といったコンプライアンス業務も行っておりますし、監査といったところもですね、サポートをさせていただいてます。で、インドは駐在員事務所でも法定監査が必要となるほどですね、かなり多岐にわたった監査が必要になってまいります。そういった法定監査、税務監査、内部監査、業務監査、そういったすべての監査に対応することも可能でございます。それから会計士に加えてですね、弊社内にはインハウスの弁護士も抱えておりますので、各種契約書の作成ですとか、雇用契約書、出向契約書、あるいは出資の際の株主間契約書、合弁契約書、そういったところの法務的サービスも、リーガルサービスも提供をしております。もちろん出資をする際、それから撤退を行う際のアドバイザリーというところもサービスを行っております。で、加えましてクロスボーダーの取引ですとか、例えばプロジェクトで皆さん進出されますよといった場合のコンソーシアムの組み方、それから入札、応札に関するですね、もろもろの税務業務のアドバイザリー、そして対外商業借入と呼ばれます、ECB、親子ローンですね、そういったところのアドバイスですとか、各種必要な手続き、サポートというものを展開しております。皆様のお手元の資料にですね、その会社概要が載ってございますので、後ほどこのようにですね、各詳しく業務内容については説明しておりますので、またご覧いただければと思います。そして本日、このように2014年度インド投資セミナーを開催しておりますが、今まで私ども2005年からほぼ毎年ですね、日本でもセミナーを開催をしております。で、今年度につきましては、先々週ですね、インド国内全拠点、デリー、ムンバイ、バンガロール、チェンナイ、アーメダバード、この全拠点でもインドの国家予算セミナーというものを開催をしております。このようにインド国内、それから日本でも情報配信を中心としてですね、皆様に、より良いその情報を提供できるようにも努めております。で、先ほどからたびたび申し上げておりますけれども、このように弊社インドを中心といたしまして、事業展開をいたしております。全従業員の人数はですね、約200名弱今抱えておりまして、うち半分が公認会計士となっております。で、加えましてインハウスに弁護士もおりますし、やはり日本企業様中心のサービスを展開させていただいているものですから、私をはじめといたしまして5名の日本人スタッフもジャパンデスクとして皆様の業務に対応させていただいています。私自身は東京事務所に勤務をしておりますけれども、インドの方に残りの4名が勤務をしておりまして、ニューデリーに宮内、鈴木という2名、それからムンバイ、アーメダバードという西部地域に太田、バンガロール、チェンナイ、南地域に荒木というものが現在勤務をしておりまして、日本人5名で皆様のサポートをさせていただいています。本日お越しの皆様ですね、もうすでにインドに進出されていらっしゃる企業様もいらっしゃるでしょうし、今進出を検討されていらっしゃる、今後進出されるという皆様もいらっしゃるかと思います。進出の際のもちろんケーススタディですとか、ビジネスモデルの構築、そういった進出の際のアドバイスもしかりですし、進出後の会計業務、本当に日々の業務からですね、税金の申告、コンプライアンス業務、監査業務、そして繰り返しとなりますけれども、各種アドバイザリー業務、法務業務、こういった多岐にわたる包括的な業務をサポートさせていただいております。今後インドはやはり難しい国だと言われますので、皆様いろいろな課題ですとか、わからない点等出てくる場面も多いかと思いますけれども、そういったところで少しでも弊社からサポートさせていただければと思いますので、今後ともよろしくお願いいたします。本日今から5名の講師が発表しますけれども、ちょっと長い長場にはなりますが、皆様お付き合いいただければと思います。よろしくお願いいたします。
ありがとうございました。続きまして、インドにおけるマクロ経済の状況に関して、アドバイザー、MBC グループのアドバイザーを務めていらっしゃいます、ジャイアント・チャウドリー様からお話をいただきたいと思います。よろしくお願いいたします。
Let me start by saying that it's a matter of great honor for me to be here. First visit to Japan and to feel for myself the business pulse and the sentiment of the movers and shakers in Japan. But I must confess and start by saying that I have two basic problems today that let me share with you. First problem is that I come from a political background. I was a member of parliament in the last Lok Sabha. And typically when there's any problem in the economy, it's the politicians and the political economy that get blamed. But here I am, I've been put on a spot. I have to lecture you on the state of our Indian economy, the macroeconomic situation. And I have my dear friend Mayur Batra to thank for that. My second problem is that typically in these events, when someone comes after the first few speakers, he faces a challenge. I have to put across something new, something that hasn't already been said. And after the excellent presentations made by Arvindji and Yamane-san, it's going to be a big problem. So hopefully you'll help me. Any hard-nosed economists here, you can blame any factual errors on my political background. These are the broad topics that we're going to touch on today. I second what Arvindji said about the fact that not only India, the world economy has gone through some strife. Now, if you note what happened in 2008, 9, and 9, 10, there was a contraction. It's obvious why. There was a global financial crisis. One of the reasons why India emerged reasonably unscathed from this crisis of confidence in the financial sector was, as we debated in Lok Sabha in the parliament, was one of the major features, the fact that we were some degrees removed from the global financial system. Our banking systems were perhaps more robust or the more conservative. We didn't have the fancy derivatives that were being traded in other economies. And also the steps that the government took. There was an expansion in public expenditure. If you remember, 2009 was election year. So the government at that time initiated Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Act. And also there was a tax cut, a benefit given to the industries, and specifically the exporting industries, to help tide over the problems. Starting in 2009-10, there was a partial withdrawal of those benefits. But if you look at it, yes, there was a contraction in the economy, and from high levels of growth, from as much as 9.6%, we fell down. But again, over the last 2 years, we've had some issues, but I think the mood right now, the feeling, the buzz, is that change is about to happen. People ask me what is new, what is different. We've just gone through elections, a new government in place. How are things going to change? One of the major things that comes across for me is that in the last 2 decades, India has gone through dynamic change. Our economy changed post-91, but the politics didn't go through a change. Public mood might have been for private capital, might have been pro-market, but the political rhetoric of conservatism, of nationalism, always won. I remember my interaction with David Cameron last year when he came to India, and there was a bunch of us younger members of parliament that he interacted with. One of the first questions he asked us was that there's a sense in the global markets, and especially players in industry who are interested in India, want to invest in India, they're asking that over the last 5-10 years, over the last 2 governments, there was a focus on the social sector. So you had the Employment Guarantee Act, you had the Land Acquisition Bill coming in, social spending was on the rise, and people respect that, given India's situation. In the background of the failure of the WTO talks right now, over food stocks, over agricultural subsidies, I think you also appreciate the fact that India's needs are slightly different, and our government has tended to focus on the social sector. But the point that he was making was that there's a concern that have we gone too far? And that was his question posed to us. And we were all thinking at that time, this is before elections, and we were thinking about what the public perception is, that if the government of the day actually opens up all sectors to foreign capital, will that be politically expedient to do? So this is the major change that has come through, that the election results were overwhelmingly not for one man, or not a result because of anti-incumbency as much, as it was the ascendancy of the middle class, the ascendancy of the market. And the primacy of the market today has been well established for the political classes. What I mean to say is that the government of the day today has a carte blanche. They have, after 1984, the first time a single party majority in parliament, a leader who is the prime minister, who has a good relationship with the Japanese government in the past, a shared history, and a voting public that will back a government that opens up sectors to private competition. So that is a major change. Any other government that comes in, any changes in the political sphere will not impact or have such a huge impact on the direction, the basic direction of our economy. So that is a big positive for investors. If you look through the slide, there is a reflection of what's happening in the world. United States, a trade deficit, just the recent figures have shown a remarkable contraction. And that is basically out of the fact that they have now become energy independent to a degree which no global commentator perhaps ever thought would come around. And shale gas phenomena is reflected. There's uptick in their manufacturing, there's uptick in consumer sentiment, and now emerging economies are concerned that if the Fed Reserve adopts a hawkish stance, will the flow of money be contracted? Well, my sense is that that is not to happen. World growth will continue. On Europe, I have my own reservations because of the political changes that are happening there, the ascendance of the right wing, the conservative parties, the anti-Europe public mood will perhaps dampen European economies to a certain extent. So a reviving America, and I think monies will continue to flow to the high growth economies of Asia. I am hopeful that Japan will be a contributing factor to increased investment in India as well. As Arvindji pointed out, highest aid to India. The highest aid donor is Japan, and even in FDI, you're number 4. Our bilateral trade needs to go up much more. If you look at the Indian economy, the current account deficit situation has improved. If you look at the imports, now there are 2 major imports or items of import that have had a huge impact historically on our current account deficit, our trade deficit. One is oil. Now that is something that is perhaps to a certain extent beyond India's control. We are energy deficient. We will continue to remain so in the future. And therefore, we will rely on, any estimates will rely on the geopolitical situation, what will happen. The tension in the Middle East, will that be resolved? Will that have a real impact on crude oil prices? Because if it does, it has a straight, undeniable impact on our Indian economy and our growth prospects. The second thing is gold. We import a lot of gold. And gold is referred to as a safe haven investing commodity in the world investor community. But in the Indian context, it's called a safe house investing. Because Indian women love gold. So if you want a safe house, you buy gold. So it's a cultural thing. So India will continue to import large amounts of gold. Just recently, government instituted some customs duty on gold, which has had an impact. And that has been reflected if you look at the imports declining. Our exports need more focus. Our export-oriented industries need more incentives. And that is going to be a major challenge for the government on how it can facilitate greater export growth. Capital flows, well, there's a great exuberance in the capital markets. I was debating with Mayurji in the morning. Sensex is now 26,000, highest ever levels. And FII flow has been on a dramatic uptick. I think my sense is a lot of people were just holding on. A lot of investment was, investors were thinking, let elections come through and then we'll take a call, a decision. Also the pension reform and insurance sector reform and the signaling by opening up FDI in defense in several sectors has been very positive for the capital markets, and it will add more depth, more volume to our capital markets. However, our concern is really, for me, principally, is we need to encourage more FDI, because the fundamental nature of FDI is it's a long-term commitment. You're not looking at a simple trade. You're not looking at a simple arbitrage. You can't just, with a press of a button, take out billions of capital flows. So I'm sure that the Japanese investors, the investor community here, we look to you to come to India and stay in India for the foreseeable future. The currency risk is definitely something that I cannot predict, but my sense is between 59 to 63 will be the fair value in perhaps the coming year to 2 years. This, of course, depends on the oil shock, if any, the geopolitical situation, and international events. Our foreign exchange reserve condition has been very, very comfortable. The phase of 91, the crisis of balance of payments crisis of 91 will perhaps not in the foreseeable future ever get repeated. Like I said, there's a new government, and after 1984, let me repeat it for emphasis, it's the first time a single party majority government is in play. Yes, the numbers are not there in Rajya Sabha, which will have an impact on legislative changes that the government would like to bring through. Insurance sector, actually the bill is currently being debated in the Lok Sabha. So that will be, I think, a good way of judging this new government and its commitment to put bills across through Parliament. Is it able to push through the insurance bill? And just last week, I was listening to Finance Minister Sri Jaitley ji, and he was talking about if Lok Sabha passes it and Rajya Sabha doesn't, then they can do a joint session in Parliament. So let's see how things progress. But my sense is because of the majority, at least for some time, the opposition